Hey guys, what's up? Thanks for joining me on another episode of Cartels on Earth. Right now, I'm gonna go ahead and discuss part 2 of this, what probably will end up being a 3-part series. So sorry guys, there's gonna be another part to this, but there's a lot of information to share, and I'm going in order. So this is gonna be part 2. Of the Avianca 203 revelations that I told you guys about a big investigation that was done, and I went and looked into it. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump right into it. This now covers a whole new investigation by Boeing, which is the company that built the plane, the manufacturer. The Federal Aviation Administration from the U.S., which contributed to the investigation in Colombia, and Pratt and Whitney, which is the company that manufactures the engines for this particular plane that was involved in the explosion. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into it. Again, like I said in the previous video, these are the facts from the investigations, from the documents that are available to people, and I will give my kind of opinion. I guess I'll point out when I'm giving my opinion, but again, these are not like things I'm saying. These are things that are on paper, on files, investigations that people have done, that these companies have done, that journalists have done, and that I went ahead and did to find out to see if they really were true. And well, I'm giving you the facts from the investigations. So let's get into it. So we discussed all the issues with the FBI in the previous video, and their investigations into looking to see if it was a bomb. Obviously, in an investigation of a plane crash, they also investigate to see if there's a possible mechanical failure. Was there something wrong with this plane? This plane was, I believe, about 18 years old, so it was up there. And this was the second owner. Avianca was their second owner. It was originally a Pan Am plane, and it was sold to Avianca later in its life. Now, I want to start off with the investigation that was done by the FAA. And a particular investigative agent. His name is Walter Krusgaard. I may have butchered that, but Walter Krusgaard was a very well-educated, and he had a lot of background with the FAA in investigations of aircraft disasters. Now, I want to point out a few things that I found in his report, which stand out significantly and contradict the bomb theory, and more side with there was a mechanical problem with this plane. First, as he was a trained investigator, unlike the other gentleman from the FBI, Walter was trained to visually inspect the plane and realize things that didn't make sense, or little clues that would warrant one thing or another. One thing that he wrote in his report that he made a very strong point of expressing in the investigation was that he noticed that there were 3 cans of beer on the floor of the crash site. 2 of them appeared that they have exploded when the plane crashed. So, you know, regular beer cans or soda cans are under pressure. They hit the floor and they popped open. There was a 3rd can lying near them, so I'm guessing they were probably next to one of those trolleys that they serve food and drinks from. And the 3rd can was perfectly intact, but it was empty. But it wasn't open. It had a small puncture. And he says that based on his experience, he states that a phenomenon like that showcases that the cabin pressure of the plane decreased slowly. So, meaning it wasn't that a massive hole exploded out of the airplane and the pressure changed immediately. It was more like a small hole happened and pressure slowly changed from whatever it was inside, the pressure of the inside meeting the pressure of the outside. Like we see in movies. We've seen movies where like a window explodes, and so people can still they're still alive, they can still put their masks on, and they're not going to die right away. It's because the pressure, it's a lot of pressure inside, and it's a small window, so it's going to take a few seconds or a few minutes for all that pressure to exit the plane and meet the level of the pressure outside the plane. So what he was saying is, based on what happened with that can, it looked like the pressure in the plane on the passenger cabin slowly depressurized. It wasn't an immediate thing, which would happen if it was a bomb. If it was a bomb, the pressure would change immediately because a gaping hole would have exploded on the plane and the pressure would have changed immediately. Now, something that he said that is very common, it's not common, it is rule to do when you're investigating an air crash, is you walk the path of the plane as much as possible, especially if it's on the ground. So considering if a plane just took off from the airport and it crashes not far from the airport, they're supposed to have a team of investigators that walk the path of where the plane went to see if anything fell off the plane, if anything, they find any evidence during that flight path. He did that. They did that with this flight, and the crazy thing is that they found a few parts that had fallen off the plane earlier before it crashed. They found several pieces. They had found where is it? Okay, so they found a piece of the gas tank that is in one of the wings. They found a cargo door for the plane, where they put the luggage, the door that they open up on the bottom, and a door for the landing gear. So you know how the wheels come out, they got little doors, and then the wheels come out. One of those doors for the landing gear under one of the wings. They found those three pieces. Now, what's interesting about that is it kind of contradicts the theory of the bomb, because if a bomb would have been the first explosion, then these pieces that are, again, below the plane on the underbelly, right? The wheels are underneath, the bottom of the wing where the gas tank is underneath, the cargo doors on the side below. Those wouldn't have been the first pieces to fall off the plane. If it would have been a bomb, the first thing you would have found are panels of the walls, of the windows, whatever would have been sucked out from the plane, from the passenger cabin. And so, in his report, he writes that he found these items which was kind of contrary to the theory of a bomb. But again, when he wrote these, this was early on in the investigation, so it made no sense. Not that they make sense, but it was too early to say, well, maybe it was a mechanical thing or it was a bomb situation. He was being more cautious, unlike the FBI agent who jumped to conclusions. So, of course, with any aircraft accident, they always check the maintenance reports of the plane that was involved in the accident. They pulled the records for the maintenance of this particular plane, and I have the exact dates of a few of them. 2 months prior, the plane had 9 malfunctions with the same issue. The first one, September 12, 1989. The second one, October 2nd, 1989. The third one, October 27th, 1989. And 6 more times after that. Remember, the plane crashed on November 27th, 1989. So in a 2-month window, it had 9 malfunctions with the same item on the plane. One of the pumps for the fuel that are located in one of the wings. The same wing that they found the part that was on the floor that fell off the plane beforehand. Now that is quite an interesting situation. This plane has a record of 9 malfunctions with the same piece. This particular piece is located in the same area where the part that the gentleman, the FAA agent, found the piece of the wing, it's under the same wing, where the cargo door is, the same side, and the door for the landing gear, also the same side. So in his mentality, he thought, obviously as an investigator, he's like, maybe this has something to do with it. Now the first thing in his mind to do, and he states in his report, and it is in the reports, but no one ever followed up on this, he went to look at the crash site and find that part that had the 9 malfunctions in the maintenance reports of Avianca. This particular model, the 727, had 8 fuel pumps. 8 fuel pumps. So we know what a fuel pump is. A fuel pump is like a water pump. There's multiple tanks of fuel in each plane, and the fuel pump, the captain or the co-pilot, someone from the crew turns on a particular switch so that they can transfer fuel from one fuel tank to another when you're running low on fuel from another fuel tank. These these fuel pumps are submerged in gasoline. They're waterproof. They're like a regular they're like a water pump, but they're fuel pumps. And when this agent Walter Korsgaard went to look for these pieces in the accident site, it turns out that all 8 of the fuel pumps were missing from the accident site. No one was ever able to find any one of the 8 fuel pumps. Now that is quite an interesting and, quite frankly, scary thought. To think that you're going to look for a piece that might give you an answer to a situation. Let's say it wasn't the fuel pumps that caused the accident, but you need to at least find the fuel pumps so you can look into it and investigate if there was a malfunction in those parts. And to think that in this debris site, in the crash site, they couldn't find fuel pumps. The 8 fuel pumps that should have been in the crash site, they couldn't find one of them. And it's on the report that all 8 fuel pumps were never located. I find that quite surprising. So they were never able to completely investigate, was the fuel pump the reason for this explosion? Was this malfunction that this plane had 9 times in the last 2 months the reason that this plane came down? That throws a lot of questions in the air. And no one ever considered investigating to look where these fuel pumps go. Did someone steal them? Did someone hide them? Was it a cover-up? No one ever considered doing any of that stuff. Now, all of the FAA agent, his theory was that reversed. It was not the same when his investigation was concluded. He did not have the same theory as the FBI agent that it was a bomb. He said that something had to have happened where there was an explosion below, not above. So we have the passenger cabin above, and then you have the cargo below, right, where they have the luggage and whatever else they're carrying. Cargo. He says that his investigation concluded that there was an explosion below, and there was a rapid decompression below first, and then slowly above in the passenger area there was a slow decompression. So below, in his investigation, it states that there was an explosion below in the cargo area first, and that had a rapid decompression, and in the passenger cabin there was a slow decompression, which is the complete opposite of the FBI agent, which said there was a full explosion and there was rapid decompression in both. But I already explained to you guys the investigation of the FBI agent, which is pretty much useless because he was not experienced. This particular gentleman actually was experienced in what he was doing in his field. The theory was more supported by Boeing. Boeing, 11 years later, released a memo to worldwide carriers any airline that owned or operated 727s. They were issued a memo stating that that particular fuel pump that was in question on the Avianca flight that had mechanical issues needed to be serviced, and that when it is to be serviced, it should only be serviced on the ground. And at the same time, these particular fuel pumps operate with a circuit breaker that the cabin crew in the flight deck can control. In this memo, it clearly stated that those circuit breakers should never be tripped or reset while mid-air. They should only be tripped, or they should only be reset on the ground by maintenance crews. This warning came almost 12 years later after the incident with Avianca. The FAA actually was well aware of what was happening, and they fined Boeing over $12 million for taking so long to investigate that issue further and issue the warning to global carriers. On top of that, that particular issue with that Avianca plane that had 9 issues beforehand, there were multiple accidents around the world after the Avianca flight, all due to the same problem. In 2001, a 737 exploded in Thailand. It was still on the ground, luckily, and the FBI and the NTSB both said it was the fuel pump, the same fuel pump that was in question in the Avianca flight in the maintenance records. In 1990, a Philippine Airlines plane also exploded while being taxied on the runway. May 5th, 2006, a 727, the same model as the one in Avianca, exploded in India. There were several other accidents also that were the same issue as the Avianca plane, and the maintenance issues that were on the record of the of Avianca's maintenance. It really shows that there was more belief in the probable cause being a mechanical failure. But no one really looked into this investigation. The Colombians did look at this investigation, but they flipped the report and made it seem as though there was a rapid decompression in both cabins. A lot of the people in the aviation world say that they're not sure if Colombian officials did this on purpose or they just lost something in translation, considering the report was in English and then it was translated to Spanish. This theory has a lot of evidence to say that it was a mechanical problem, based on the reports. These allegations, these investigations are concrete. They come by experienced people, and they have evidence that are linking one and another. They support each other. The evidence of the fuel pump in its location, the maintenance record stating that there were issues with that particular fuel pump in that particular area, the parts that the agent found that fell off the plane first. So there must have been an explosion in that area because they fell first before the plane even crashed. So the plane's flying and it had an explosion, so these parts fell and the plane kept flying a little bit longer before it finally crashed. So they found these parts here first. These parts were in the same area as the fuel pump that matched the problem with the maintenance records, that Avianca had. A lot of corresponding evidence. The cans that the agent found, which he says in other investigations, show that there was an explosion below first and then above there was a decompression, which means if there was an explosion below, it must have been from a fuel tank because the fuel pump is located within the fuel tank. So this particular report between Boeing and the FAA actually has more credibility, more evidence showcasing that there was a mechanical problem on this plane, not to mention that in the next 10-12 years there were multiple explosions of similar planes that were involved in the same manner with the same issue. The fuel pump, the fuel pump, the fuel pump. They were all the same type of issue. And then the fact that the US government fined Boeing $12 million for not addressing this problem sooner. That's pretty much it on the mechanical part of it. There's not many more things I could share with you guys. There's a few other things, which if anyone's interested in knowing those, please let me know. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this theory. This one seems more concrete. It's not a lot of myth or mystery. This one is more legitimate. I'd love to hear what you guys think though. Comment below, subscribe, and let me know any questions. Thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for part 3. It's the last one, and I'll give you my opinion at the end of that one as well. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good one.